Assalamu alaikum, this is Brother Hameed back again with the Muslim Empowerment Institute. You know, I'm kind of late on these things happening in popular culture, but I was looking at this NBA basketball player for the Memphis Grizzlies named Ja Morant, who apparently likes to turn up and film himself having a good time and wear silver teeth and show off guns like a lot of young guys his age. I understand that he got in trouble for this before and he was suspended from the NBA, and he did it again for the second time. I think they said he's going to get suspended for like 25 games or something like that. But this guy, he grew up with both his parents, living a middle-class lifestyle, unlike the people that he's trying to imitate. The guy apparently carries himself like a rapper or a street dude, or he just watches a lot of those rap videos and listens to a lot of that type of music. A side effect of listening to that type of music is trying to imitate the lifestyle that they promote within that music. You know, they do whatever the music tells them to do. And if anyone is familiar with what happened in the 1980s in America, rap music used to be socially conscious and really positive. A lot of people familiar with the New York hip-hop scene in the 1980s and 90s know that rap music back then was instrumental in a lot of black people gaining an interest in Islam due to many of the Islamic references and consciousness that was in the music during that time. But when some of the rap music record company owners, whom just so happened to be of the Jewish persuasion, started to invest in the prison industrial complex, they stopped playing the positive, socially conscious rap music on the radios, and they started to heavily propagate the gangster rap music to first eliminate any positivity or any type of social consciousness or revolution that was emerging among young black youth. But also they sought to mass incarcerate young black youth by glorifying the life of a criminal and essentially make money off of black suffering. This was around the time when crack was becoming popular in urban communities across America. You know, it showed up out of nowhere in the black community. I don't know, maybe it was magic. And the rappers were glamorizing drug dealing, being a thief, a whoremonger, and a pimp. I used to listen to this stuff, so I'm aware of what they was talking about. Many other rappers even had pimp and gangster in their stage names, even naming themselves after guns and different types of alcoholic drinks. Well, this gangster rap music was psychological warfare, a weapon against the black community. Guys rapping in kufis and red, black, and green dashikis became corny, but rapping about murdering other black people, selling dope, having sex with a lot of ratchet women. You know, if you wanted to get a record deal, this is what your lyrical content had to be about. Otherwise, you're not getting on the radio, and you're definitely not getting a record deal. And now, from what I've heard, that's the majority of what they've been talking about in the rap music popular today. They've been basically talking about the same thing for 30 years. Now, many of those rappers in the 90s who were glorifying this lifestyle were basically studio gangsters, with some exceptions. These guys weren't out murdering people or even selling dope or even doing drugs, some of them. They definitely weren't living in low-income housing anymore. They lived in the suburbs, some of them. And their kids went to nice schools. But within a generation's time, these young black youth who were babies in the 90s and weren't even born yet are now really actually living a lifestyle as a gangster. And these rappers are being murdered at an alarming rate because they're living the lifestyle of the music that they promote. You can't rap about all this stuff and not be influenced by it. You know, being a rapper these days is dangerous business. So-called art is imitating life and life is imitating art. Now, could this be the reason why Ja Morant, who's a multi-millionaire off of running the basketball up and down the court, is acting like a rapper or acting like a criminal? You know, he's acting that way despite not growing up that way. You know, he grew up in a two-parent home, which is rare in the black American community, and he had a middle-class lifestyle. Now, why is this? Part of it is because of the black monoculture that we have in America, where despite where you land on the socioeconomic totem pole, regardless of your social class, regardless of where you live, what school you went to, your religion, you still display the same behaviors. You still wear the same clothes. You eat the same food. You have a similar lifestyle. No matter if you're poor, middle class, well-to-do, you still acting the same. It's black folks from different backgrounds adhering to a singular culture, the monoculture. Many black people in America believe that it's only one way to be black, and following the status quo is the only acceptable way. That's all social engineering, and this wasn't always the case. But until some people who aren't black and have a different religious identity decided to only give record contracts to people who look a certain way and act a certain way, and rap about certain content and will sell their people out for $1 and probably for free. That's how they were able to manufacture a culture that has led to the murder of thousands of black youth, young men and women, every single day in America in these urban cities. Oh, it's not some white supremacist that's snatching you out of your home and lynching you for registering black folks to vote and putting a burning cross in your yard. That's not happening. It's people that look just like me shooting up funerals, shooting up your grandma's house, murdering children, breaking into your car, looking for guns so they can go kill up some more people. In my city recently, this dude shot his girlfriend and set her on fire like the KKK used to do. Doing all this for clout and then going to the studio and rapping about it. Then they use your lyrics against you when you catch a case, then they lock you up. The black monoculture is how they were able to convince a large number of young black women in America that when you reproduce, it's perfectly fine to have these children on your own, out of wedlock, with Pookie and Ray Ray, of course. The black monoculture is how you have Keisha, who works at McDonald's and braids hair on the weekends and does lashes for women who want to look like clowns, and Janice, who's a principal at an elementary school, both pregnant by the same dude that ain't got a job and has a failed rap career. Now let me give you two more quick examples of people that I've known personally that were victims of the black monoculture. First case, you have a black American woman whose parents are rich on both sides, mom and dad. They're black millionaires, African American. She went to white private schools, lived in the suburbs, but she decided to go to a historically black college, and she got pregnant the first semester out of wedlock. Her parents said, you're coming back home and going to school, right? A few years later, she gets pregnant again out of wedlock by another guy. Then a few years later, she gets pregnant again by another guy. 3 out of wedlock kids by 3 different guys, yet she grew up with some serious money, coming out of a 2-parent home. Never been to the ghetto, right? Now, if you were to see her now, she's an attorney, she makes good money, but she still wears wigs and lashes. Her appearance, as well as her life outcomes, are indistinguishable from someone who grew up in the hood, with the exception of her being a high-class attorney and living in an expensive neighborhood. Second case, you have the only daughter of a black college professor and his wife. She ends up getting her PhD as well and becoming a college professor just like her father. But she gets pregnant on a one-night stand as a college professor, out of wedlock, and then she tells the guy, me and my child, we don't need you. This is my child. Now she's a single mother, yet she grew up in a 2-parent home, grew up with money, but her outcomes are indistinguishable from the folks that grew up in the hood. Now, why is this? It's because of the black monoculture. We got to realize that when the ancestors of black folks were taken as slaves, they didn't all speak the same language. They had different religions. Many of them were Muslims. Many of them had local animist types of beliefs. They didn't consider themselves to be all the same. They didn't call themselves Africans even. They had different tribes like Hausas, Igbos, Fulanis, Akan, all different types of tribes. They didn't consider themselves to be brothers and sisters prior to enslavement, especially the ones that the Africans sold to the Europeans during the transatlantic slave trade. So this black monoculture in America is something that needs to be dismantled. A wealthy white couple in Vermont may have little in common with Bubba from the trailer park in Ohio. They don't live in the same neighborhood, they don't eat the same foods, they don't dress the same, they don't even cross paths with each other. And there's no pressure for them from the outside nor from within to have the same culture. So black people who are not attached to this black American jahiliyyah, this ignorance, need to decide that this is not my culture, this manufactured culture is not mine, it doesn't belong to me, and I don't claim it. And for black American Muslims, our religious tradition is very rich. Look at Omar ibn Said, who was an African scholar who was taken as a slave in the early 1800s and brought to America. He wrote several manuscripts in Arabic on a variety of subjects, including his autobiography. Look at Abdurrahman ibn Suri, who was a prince taken as a slave who fought for years to get his freedom. They even made a film about him called Prince Among Slaves, and he ended up getting his freedom from John Quincy Adams, who was the president of the United States, and he was able to return to Africa. Look at Bilali Muhammad, who was another enslaved Muslim, who also wrote Arabic manuscripts. He lived off coastal Georgia, and he had a Muslim community and has descendants that are still around to this day. If anyone has ever heard of the Gullah Geechee people who live off the coast of the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida, they have strong Islamic influences in their culture. Look at Marcus Garvey, highly influenced by Islam and the things that he tried to do. You know, we didn't even get to the influence of Islam on jazz music in the early 1900s. I already mentioned the influence of Islam on hip-hop in the 80s. The Nation of Islam, Malcolm X, the Darul Islam movement. And that's all a whole nother story. But we're going to have to disconnect ourselves from this poison. It's killing black people and it's limiting our full potential. Only a people who don't think for themselves will get caught up into the black monoculture, a culture manufactured by the European as a psychological weapon of mass destruction, designed to keep you on the plantation, designed to keep you in prison, designed to keep you with no job, baby daddies, baby mamas, single mothers, a clown that all the people on the earth laugh at. Meanwhile, they're allowing migrants by the thousands into this country every day, and they're dropping them off in black communities in places like Chicago and New York. They're taking the resources away from black folks and giving them to people flooding in from the border to replace black folks because they don't need you anymore. And what do you do with something you don't need anymore? You throw it away. You replace it. Billions and billions of dollars, our taxpaying dollars, is going to Ukraine, but they won't invest in black communities. No reparations, you can forget about it. They need to rename every majority black city in America to Ukraine, so maybe we can get us some money. No money to fix your schools in the inner cities. No extra money to pay teachers in the failing school districts with violent, angry kids. But if you want puberty blockers and transgender testosterone drugs to go out there and so-called change your gender or to abort your children, Democrats got plenty of money to send you. Now, we're not building healthy families in mass anymore. We're building broken homes. We got poor diets. We're not exercising. We're full of drugs, alcohol, and processed foods. Now, it's time for black folks who think for themselves. Anybody out there who think for themselves? Who think outside the box. Who can't be put in a box. Who go against the grain. Who are not going to follow the herd. Who want to secure a future for themselves and their families. And who want safety in the hereafter. It's time to escape the black monoculture. That's it, man. Like, share, and subscribe. Until the next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.